Want to go far in business and in life? You can't do it alone. The secret is expanding your network of personal relationships, building friendships, connecting on an intimate level, away from the office, over a coffee or cocktail. Welcome to All In with the real Nate Payo. The show that asks what happens when you go all in and leverage the power of your network of personal relationships.
From author Donnie Boivin comes the book, How to Be a Success Champion, available on Amazon. After years of living other people's dreams, author Donnie Boivin decided to jump out on his own and start a business, thinking it would be easy. Instead, he had a rude awakening and quickly understood that he had spent 20 years being an employee and had no idea how to be a business owner. His business was tanking, and he was on the brink of losing everything when he decided to fight for business freedom. In this must-read and life-changing book, author Donnie Boivin shares with readers his story intermingled with lessons learned from his mistakes and his failures. In How to Be a Success Champion, you will find advice the author received from mentors and how he went from zero to a six-figure business. The author walks you through the steps of how to get out of your own way, how to play the game of business and win, find your strengths, how to network effectively, how to build a personal brand, how to create champions for your business, how to get great at sales, how to take complete ownership of you and your business. How to Be a Success Champion from author Donnie Boivin, available on Amazon in both Kindle and paperback editions. Order your copy right now. It makes a great book for corporate events too. How to Be a Success Champion from author Donnie Boivin, available on Amazon.
Hello, hello. Welcome to the All In podcast with Nate Payo. Of course, I am your host, Nate Payo. Today, I'm joined with Christine Smith. Christine has become a synergistic influencer. I don't think I said that word right. She's slowly paving the way for others to network more intentionally through education and leading by example. She's become a networking whisperer of sorts and hopes to continue showing others how to build community. Welcome to the show, Christine. How are you?
Good. Thanks for having me.
No problem. Thanks for coming. Big words, if they're not like two syllables, like I just always just get garbled up on it. So very cool. So you're here to talk about my favorite topic, which is networking, a networking whisperer. What does a networking whisperer mean to you?
So I came up with that name after having a networking meeting with somebody, and he had mentioned it over the phone. I kind of laughed and I was like, that's kind of what I've become at this point. I feel like I have so much skill and knowledge associated with networking, and I've been able to help people be better networkers and intentionalize how they build their business. So it fits well, I think.
It does. And you notice there's this guy, I used to go to these, of all things, networking events. And there's a guy, his business was called the Sales Whisperer. That's what he wanted to be known as. And I remember thinking, I was like, oh, that's kind of cool. But it's kind of like, if you're not in sales, and I don't really have any need for your services. But networking whisperer, like everybody needs to network at some point in their life, and some more than others. And it's just, I think, at this task that's very daunting to people, that they have this idea like it's a painful experience. It's something you have to do that you just would rather go to the dentist instead. So you need somebody to show you that, like, no, networking's not bad. It's actually a really good thing. You got to just figure it out how it works for you. Were you always a networker?
So not intentionally like this. It was something that just kind of came over time and trial and error. And honestly, it came out of really trying to separate myself from other people in business. And I didn't like being put into the same space as everybody else. I've never liked that. So as you can tell, like, my hair is purple. Like, I don't ever do anything that's typical. So I didn't like people placing me in that space before they even got a chance to know me. So I was like, how do I separate myself from other people aside from the knowledge I have from, previous experience or, what I'm doing now. Like, why does any of this other stuff matter? So I'll be like, well, why don't I just help people? Plain and simple, right? Build myself as a resource. That was the intention anyway. So why don't I just build myself as a resource? Why don't I build a really good Rolodex? Because people that I know are going to need that, clients I know are going to need that. So why not just do it that way? And if people want to work with me, great. They'll learn exactly what I do. They'll learn exactly who I want to work with, because I'm going to tell them, and they'll know exactly how to make an introduction to me, exactly how to make a referral, and I'll ask them the same thing as well, because it's just easy at that point.
Mm-hmm. I think that's a thing about networking is like when you go into it at first, you think, oh, I got to meet somebody so I can tell them about business that they should be buying from me. And you realize quickly that your network grows bigger when you learn about what the other person is doing and you're able to bring them referrals and make that, like what I refer to as like your network is a bunch of tools and resources, and your value is based on how many problems you can solve. And the bigger your toolbox is, the more resources you have to solve problems, the more valuable you become. So when you can solve other people's problems by connecting them to people in your network, you're really making powerful connections, because you have a problem, I got your solution, here's somebody you need to meet, and then those two connect, they solve problems together, and they go away happy, like, hey, Christine connected us, she's awesome, like what can we do to help her out? And they'll throw it back. So it's not something that you build overnight. It does take time, it takes energy to establish these things. You have to start being known as just, I think, just a giver to begin with. You have to be that person that's always looking out for other people first, and that shows when you're authentic about it, that people come back and they go, hey, you've helped me out, like what can I do to help you out, what can I learn about you? And they find out that, like, hey, you're not just this one person that your business card says it is, but you got a lot of characteristics, you got a personality, you're able to serve different people. It's definitely a good way about going about building your network is serving others first.
Yeah, I think
So
you have to
that
lead by
leads,
example.
yeah, for sure. So I usually like to ask my guests a question around the word luck. What does that word mean to you, and how has it played a role in your life, or not at all?
So I was thinking about this before talking to you today, and I was trying to figure out what I wanted to say. I believe luck is perception. So people call other people lucky because of something that they accomplished usually. And they call it lucky because they don't necessarily see themselves in that position. And the same goes for unlucky. There are certain things that for sure happen, right? And someone could say, well, that's super unlucky, but I think it's all perspective. So I'll give you an example. I was in a really bad car accident when I was 17, to the point where the emergency personnel that were on the scene thought I died.
Mm-hmm.
And no one knew that I actually had survived and was like walking around. I was only in the hospital for a few days, but I had a massive head injury, and I have a really big scar on my face. And while that was a very traumatic experience, especially at 17, right before my senior year of high school, there was things that happened later in life that I don't think would have happened if that experience had not happened. So you could say it was lucky, you could say it was unlucky, but I look at it as it's a curveball. Everyone has the opportunity to catch curveballs and use it as fuel to get you to the next spot. And it could be one thing, it could be nothing that you learned from that experience, but all of those things are what make you who you are. And, if you're going to sit there and say, oh my God, all these things happened to me and now it's awful, well, that's poor attitude, in my opinion, rather than saying, well, these things happened, but it didn't stop me, or it gave me a different perspective and it helped me shift to moving forward faster, or it put me in a completely different direction I never thought was even possible. I mean, even right now during the pandemic, I feel like I've had an even further growth opportunity because I've been able to actually sit and think, okay, where do I want to go? What is going to make me most happy? Where do I want to take my business? How do I want to continue helping people? is this stuff that's happening, is it unlucky? I mean, I guess you could say it is, but I really believe it's all about perspective.
And perspective is such an important word because, everybody has different things happen to them in life. They start at a different spot, but what comes into their life and how they react to them has a big influence in, I guess, their successful outcomes, what it is to be successful to them, whatever that may be. And you're right, like the pandemic hits and you go, oh crap, your business, and I network a lot too. And it's like, oh, well, how do you network with people when you can't get in front of them face to face? It's such a personal experience and it works really good. And so you're like, is my business over, or do I just kind of like ride it out and sit on the couch and knock on wood, everybody's around when we come back? Or you take a stance like, how can I continue with what I'm doing in a new way of doing things? And what can I learn and take away that can be rolled out in a bigger, more powerful way after things, I guess, return somewhat back to normal and people are meeting in person? So for me, I was like learning like, hey, this podcast thing I was kind of kicking off right before it happened, and it really accelerated working from home. And it gave me a chance to reach out and connect with way more people than I would have thought I was possible doing when I started my podcast. And it's taken me in different directions that I never thought possible as well. So it is truly perspective and what you take from it and what you decide to do with it.
Yeah.
So let's talk a little bit about networking. As a networking whisperer, what do you find people like that are afraid of networking first approach you for, and what they want help with? And what's your kind of take on helping people become better networkers?
Well, I would say most people don't just like come because they need help. Most people come because they want to join a group, or they're like, oh, I hear, these networking groups they're different than, BNI or a leads group or, a chamber group or, something like that. And as we start having a conversation, I ask them, what is it like going to an event? How do you feel? What is it like doing a one-on-one? How are you feeling during these situations? And what's very interesting is the response is very similar, regardless of how old somebody is, regardless of the job that they have or how much experience they have. It's all anxiety. It's all fear. It's scarcity based. And I think a lot of it is because we have this notion of what networking is supposed to be. And we're all put in this spotlight, even though there's no spotlight, and we're told to perform an act that we have no idea how to do. And we're so worried about the judgment that's going to come from us messing up, which is all self-perceived, right? Like none of that stuff actually exists. But when you go to an event or you're networking with somebody one-on-one, there's just that fear of rejection. There's that judgment zone that could possibly happen, and people are thinking about things that have not even occurred yet. So having the conversation about the mindset reset, about the judgment concept, and listen, this isn't high school. This isn't the high school cafeteria. I know that's what it feels like, and you're trying to figure out which table you need to sit at, but there's a better way to do this, and you already do it. And I think just getting people to realize, like, this is not that hard. You are doing networking more than you realize. And it's just resetting your perspective that, yes, we're in a professional setting, but you can still have a personal conversation and still be professional. You can still talk to people like you're interviewing them to be your friend, but you want to get to know them on a professional level. And it's amazing watching people actually do this live and watch their defenses just completely be relaxed, and they can actually be themselves and have a conversation. And business actually happens when that happens. People know you, they like you, they trust you. People are going to do business with people like that. And if you can be more relaxed, you're going to be more confident. And when you're more confident, you're going to say the right things. Just because you're going to go back to some of your training, you're going to go back to previous experience. And when someone makes you feel comfortable, it's easy at that point. It's not hard work. You're not, word vomiting on somebody. You're not giving them a sales pitch, because it's easy to have a conversation. It's easy to have a qualifying conversation to see if they're even a person that you should be having a sales conversation with. And then figuring out, okay, well, this person could be a multitude of opportunities, not just somebody that's going to buy something from me. And those are things that I'm teaching people. I'm getting them to understand, like, there is more to networking than just selling stuff, right? It's what else can these people offer? What else can your network and community do for you? And you do for them. It's not just a one-sided street. And working on tools and resources together is really how you accomplish being a really great business person, in my opinion, because you can't do it by yourself. More hands make light work, for sure. And it just makes networking way easier. And when you have a clearer mindset on it, it also makes it more enjoyable. And there's less anxiety around meeting new people, having those one-on-ones. Post COVID-19, when we can go back to doing events, imagine what an event would be like if everybody was open to talking to people more than just the sales conversation. Like, what would that look like? It'd be so weird, honestly. I don't like going to events because of that fear of, well, how do I break into a group of people that don't look very welcoming? And I go on my mind, like, do I use a basketball move and box somebody out? Do I tell some weird, awkward joke? Do I make fun of myself and get someone to laugh, and hopefully that works? Do I find somebody that's standing also by themselves and go make a really sarcastic joke, and hopefully it's not too awkward for both of us and we can have some type of human conversation? That shouldn't have to happen at an event. It should be very natural. It should be very organic. But a lot of events don't make it that easy either.
Yeah, it's tough. And I liked where you said it's about like interviewing somebody to be your friend. It's like a friendship. And you think about, like, for me, I think, like, who are the people that have been close and exciting for me to know in my life, and how did those relationships begin? And they usually have something to do with, very quickly, there was a commonality of something in common. There was a quick connection. There was the dropping of the guard in the reservations, usually pretty quickly. And so you go, how can I replicate that? And I know it's a little different. You're like, oh, I'm going to go into a room, bunch of strangers, and what am I going to do? Just go tell them all my life story and stuff like that. But you don't necessarily have to do that. And what I've found is, like, if you go into the mindset, like, hey, everybody's first and foremost at a networking event to meet other people. They went there for that intent. They might not like that they're there for that, but that is why they went. So they're already receptive to having a conversation versus like going up and talking to a stranger at the grocery store, where they might not be receptive to having a conversation. So then you go, well, how do you feel going into this thing? Well, imagine that if you're there feeling this way, there's exactly somebody else just like you that feels exactly the same way too, that's nervous, uncomfortable, that don't know who they're going to talk to. And they're waiting for somebody to go up and say hi to them. So you go, well, if I'm sitting there waiting for somebody to say hi to me, and somebody else is over there waiting for somebody to say hi, why don't I be the person that says hi? Why don't I be the person that extends the first conversation? And you go, well, what do I say to somebody? It's like, well, it's nothing really. I mean, you just go, hi, who are you? What do you do? Make the conversation about that person. And if you really want to get them going, what I find something that always kind of disarms people pretty quickly is there's usually some physical characteristic or some piece of clothing or some accessory that they've done with themselves that is very deliberate. That means that they put some thought into it. Like, you've brought up that you have purple hair. Like, that's an opener. Like, oh, I love your purple hair. Like, you put some thought into having purple hair. It wasn't just randomly your hair was purple. Like, you did it. So it's something that, like, it's a reflection of your personality. Now, if I say, I love your purple hair, you say, oh, yeah, and you tell a little bit of a story about it. And then the story turns into a conversation. So, like, I'm a big advocate. Like, somebody's got interesting shoes on. Like, if they're wearing, like, really bright red shoes or really bold colors, or they have a really fancy watch, or they got, like, something, like, really elaborate eyeglasses, earrings, or something, all you have to do is compliment them on that. A sincere compliment, of course. And they're going to be a little bit more apt to start talking about it and engage in a conversation. So that's usually like my first recommendation, people, is do that. That starts a conversation. they're a little bit uncomfortable too. And as you're conversing, like if you can get a third person to join you, it increases the energy. So you don't have to know a third person there. Like somebody else can be walking by and you can be like, "Hey, Christine, have you met my friend Sam that you just happened to meet 2 seconds ago?" And then the conversation takes off. And then there's also like that, not this weird, "Hey, exit I got to do because like we stood here too long and I gotta go fill my drink up," and then like now you see them standing in the corner, but you don't want to go like re-talk to them again. So like I like to kind of try to do that with the conversations. And the last thing I usually try to do is say, "Hey, look, a successful meeting for me is to have a 10-minute conversation with two people that I would feel like leads to a coffee follow-up and find out what they do in 2 weeks' time." So then it's just really about like, "Hey, what do you do?" Like little chit chat. "Hey, let's follow up with a coffee soon." There's not this like pressure to have this one-on-one interaction, and you're able to kind of like do that. And once you do two things, you're like, "Okay, I got my stuff done." Like you can choose to leave at that point or you can continue the conversations. But usually what happens is you kind of get a little momentum with conversing with people, and the chit chat goes a little bit easier, and the networking events become a lot more fun. And if you keep going back to them, these 50 strangers start becoming 50 people you kind of know pretty well, and you see them regularly, and it's not so hard anymore. And then it just builds up over time. So it's definitely a scary thing for people, but it's easily overcome. So you talked about creating an environment where networking is different, and it's different than what I think most people expect of it. And I think you call it ripple effects, correct?
Correct. So Ripple Effects is a networking company.
What is Ripple Effects? How did you get your start with it, and what do you do that's different?
So Ripple Effects was a name that I thought of after I wanted to develop my own networking company. I had been already running strategic networking groups for some time. I've been running them for about 4 years, and I was doing it for somebody else, and I was like, I can do this better. I can build more value. I can provide more structure, which is something that I thrive off of. So I know that a lot of the people that I like to be around and network with and work with would also appreciate that. So I was trying to think of a name that represented what I believe networking is. And think of a droplet of water, right? It has ripples, and you don't know where it's going to go or what else it might hit. And I think we all have that, and we don't usually use it to our advantage in business or personally, or to push ourselves in any direction. We just kind of like, I'm just going to sit here and let my ripples go somewhere, but I don't care to see where it goes or where it could end up. And to me, that's opportunity lost, and that's inefficiency. So one of the things that I wanted to make sure when I developed this company was a strong process. So a strong process in the methodology of actually how you communicate to somebody when you want to network with them. So, asking them who their clients are and asking them, well, tell me more about that. Tell me about their personalities. And you having already built your client avatars and your networking avatars, I call it a grocery list, and being very detailed and specific and being intentional with how you communicate to people, whether it's in person or at an event, and making sure that you have that agenda and you're like, the goal of this meeting is to form a partnership. If something else happens out of that, that's just icing on the cake. But the original goal is to see if this person is going to be a value add to your network, to your Rolodex. So how does that conversation have to flow? And I know what's worked for me and what's helped me build my business. So I'm like, how can I replicate this for someone else so that they can use it and modify it for themselves based on the type of business? So it applies to anyone in any type of business, whether they're B2B or B2C, or even if they're not necessarily in a business development type role, but they need to have communication with people because they're recruiting or, they're trying to fundraise. Like, you still need to network. You still need to have good strategic conversations with people and not come off as that used car salesman, which I did car sales. So I tell people all the time, like, this is what you don't want to do. This is why you don't want to sound like that. And everyone always chuckles and laughs because they know they've either experienced it or they've done it themselves. So I'm like, here's a better way to approach networking where you're doing it intentionally, you're having a non-confrontational approach, and you're actually helping somebody. Even if they never participate in your network, you're still leading by example. And that's one of the biggest things I want from people is if you want to be a really good networker, you have to prove it. You can't just say you're a really good networker. I want to see it. I want to see you introduce me to somebody else. I want another human being because of you. I want to meet somebody else because you took that extra 30 seconds to make that introduction. And if you don't, or you don't talk about me to somebody else, or you don't, share my post or do any type of interaction, communication, or anything further in that relationship, to me, that's lack of effort. And there's no relationship. Just like any other relationship, right? You have to put time and effort into it. And to build a strategic network, to build a community of people that are going to advocate for you, you have to, one, advocate for them. You have to advocate for yourself, and you have to make sure you set that expectation. And that's the biggest difference is, I'm not only showing people how to do this in these groups, we are training and we're educating our members to make sure that they can do this as intentionally as possible. We all have other lives. We're not just our business, right? So how do we build business as fast as possible with the most qualified clients and having the most qualified people around us to continue helping us build business? And at that point, I'm like, what do you have to worry about? Your prospecting model is other people. You get time back at that point. Then now you can start putting time back into your business and working on your business and being able to really balance those a lot better rather than, most people, they're not doing that.
Yeah. I like how you describe like avoid being the used car salesman, and you start talking about like, hey, you're given a grocery list of the people you're looking to connect with. So when you connect with somebody and you're like, oh crap, they're gonna pitch me on buying the product, and instead you go, hey, this is like a very detailed description of somebody that I do business with well, and that would be somebody I would want to meet and connect with. All of a sudden, it gives them an idea of like very clearly who you want to work with. So when people know you, it's very important to know like, hey, like if you do landscaping, you could be mowing lawns, or you could be installing massive parks and stuff like that. So you have to be specific. Otherwise, the park guy is going to get somebody calling over, can you come mow my lawn? And it's like, well, that's not a really good referral. So you're going to get better referrals too, but also I think it gives you a way to say like, oh, well, maybe I'm that person. Like if you describe me when you're saying, hey, the person I'm really looking for is this XYZ person, you go, you know what, I have that need. I should ask you about it. And then you see if it's a fit, but it's also a way that you go, who you start thinking like who in your network, like who can I pass on? Who can I introduce you to? Who's going to, be a big deal. And the other thing you mentioned is like, that you put in the effort, but it's not always like overnight that the person you get connected to pans out. Like what I found is people, if you're open-minded and you're not, keeping score, and you just are patient, like sometimes these people you introduce you to, they might not come back around for 2 or 3 years, or it may take you 2 or 3 years of continuous relationship building with them before you make, you do business, that they refer you big business, because, sometimes people are making little transactions that don't take a lot of thought and they're low risk stuff, or some people are saying like, hey, this is a big transaction. It means, we have an existing customer that or a client, or what I guess would be a customer, a vendor, an existing vendor that serves this product, and we have a good relationship with them, but we're always looking for a second, and we wouldn't want to kick you out because somebody came in and offered $5 less, so we're not going to kick them out for $5 less, but stay there, keep knocking on the door, stay in front of my face, and there's going to come a time where either A, that vendor's going to fall on their face, or B, they're not going to be able to service all your needs. And then that's when the person that's right there, that's been kind of, front and center, is going to get the call like, hey, now's your time. Come on in. Let's do this. And it takes some effort. So networking pays off over time. And you're right. You don't have to be only on the sales side, because as me, I'm on the buyer side, and if I don't go out and network and meet tons of buyers or tons of sellers, I don't know what's out in the market. I don't know what's going on. I don't have relationships with people. If I have an actual problem with their product or company, like who am I going to call that's going to get it resolved and step up to the plate? Like it helps me to go out there and meet all these people, even though I know they're all going to try to pitch me stuff and sell me stuff. And I have to tell most of them no. Getting out there in front of all these people consistently will lead to better results for me to be able to do my job better, even as just a buyer or somebody you think maybe you don't necessarily need a network. So there's definitely a ton of value in that. My next question for you is this idea of being all in. What does all in mean to you around an idea or an outcome?
I mean, I guess I could take, ripple effects as an example. Being all in is you see it through. You see it through its development and death, if it comes to that. You can compare this to even like little projects like around the house, right? Like, have you completed all these projects, or are you just kind of letting it go, or is that big of a deal? If it's something you're really passionate about, you should be seeing it through. You should be seeing where it's going to go, how far it's going to go. If it's plateaued, can you alter it? Can you modify it? Can you get coaching? What's going to help you take it to that next level, or is it, it's ran its course, right? That's what all in is to me. I don't give up very easily either. So I definitely put my heart and soul into things that I'm most passionate about. So I want to see where it goes.
Awesome.
How far I can take it.
And I'm looking forward to see how far ripple effects can go. So let's see the proof in the pudding. Where is your grocery list of who is your ideal referral for ripple effects?
So my ideal referral is type A personalities. So people that are type A seem to work really well in this environment. Extroverted or introverted doesn't matter. So my format actually works really well for introverts as well. You can still be type A and be introverted. I also find that people who are of genuine heart, so they're people that you can tell would take the shirt off their backs for somebody else. There's no question if you were to call them, they would help. There's no question if you were to text them, you needed something, they would help. They're already doing the reciprocity thing. Whether they realize it or not, those are the types of people I want to be around, because that is how this works faster. And I don't want people in this who are just looking to ride other people's coattails. I'm not looking for people who are just looking to, get a bunch of leads and run. Like this takes effort. This takes time, and this takes, active communication. So even people who are trying to think of like a good word, but they're like always half in everything. Like they're like, oh yeah, I'll be there. And they're the person that always RSVPs, but never shows up. Like, I don't want those people. Mm-hmm. You are the person that you are very reliable. You're considered, people will consider you loyal. You don't half-ass anything. Like, I don't want people who are going to be the ones that RSVP and just continually never show up, because that doesn't help anybody and it doesn't provide any value to other members, especially for the groups.
And those are usually the people that are like, didn't do their homework. They show up and they go, oh, I was supposed to give you a referral. Let me write out something that's kind of like mediocre.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah. The people that copied other people's homework. So I was the one people copied off homework of. So I'm like, nope.
Not this time.
I don't want you in this. I also, look for people who are coachable. So people that really like to continue growing. So if you tell me that, I'm the person that writes the books, I don't read books anymore, like, you're not going to be a good fit for this. Mm-hmm. Because this is about continual growth. This is about continual development, both personally and professionally. And I honestly believe you can't truly be successful until you realize, like, you're never going to know everything. And if you are constantly looking to, get feedback from other people, whether it's, networking or just, in general conversation, you're going to do really well. And those are
Yeah.
the type of people that I know are going to thrive in this type of environment, whether it's,
Okay.
the groups or, the education and, training or anything else, that comes down the road. I know that those type of people are really going to do well.
That's awesome. So do they need to be local or is this an online thing that they can be a part of?
So with the benefits of going virtual, we can actually have groups all over the world. So the benefit of doing that is if you are in business and you should be talking to people outside of your area, and that could just be 100 miles outside of your area, let's say, or out of your state or out of your region, out of your time zone or out of your country, you should really be networking with people outside of those areas on a regular basis. So we do offer opportunities for people to join groups in that type of situation. A lot of the groups start out locally. So some people might have a group where it's, they can actually physically go drive to a location if they wanted to and meet their fellow group members. Or they do virtual and they're still local, but the opportunity for better time management is available to them because these groups can run any time of day, any day during the week, as long as everybody shows up. So if somebody wants to run a group at 5 a.m. on a Sunday, have at it, as long as everybody shows up and is running the format that, we've constructed for them. And people have already commented on, the opportunities they've got out of this, how fast they've been building their networks, especially if they're new to their company or they're even just new to the area. That's been really helpful for them. Ultimately, we're looking to go international. So we've already had people from other countries check out the groups and are considering, when is a good time for them to start opening up their own groups in their own areas. And everyone goes through the same training, so everybody knows what's expected of these groups. So there's no question. It's I try and make it as black and white as possible.
Very cool. So where should somebody go if they want to get connected to you, find out more about what you're up to?
So people can follow me on LinkedIn. So I'm the Christine Smith with purple hair, and then we have Ripple Effects on LinkedIn as well. And then you can visit our website, rippleeffects.us, but it's not spelled like you would think it's typically spelled. It's RIPLEFX.us.
Awesome. All those links will be on the show notes, so we'll be able to easily find you. And I would just definitely recommend checking Christine out on LinkedIn. She's always posting a ton. Get plugged in, see what she's about. Just watch what she's up to for a little bit, see if she's a good fit. And I think you'll find that she's very welcoming. Say hi, tell her where you found her, and take it from there. Thanks for coming on the show.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
Awesome.
Make sure to visit our website, therealnatepeo.com, where you can subscribe to the show on iTunes, so you'll never miss an episode of All In. While you're at it, if you found value, we'd appreciate a rating on iTunes, or if simply tell 2 friends about the show. Looking to connect? You can find Nate Peo on LinkedIn or Instagram.